In 2018, there were approximately 663,000 marijuana-related arrests, and of those arrests, about 92% of them were for simple possession. This number of arrests is appalling when compared to the data involving other kinds of crime in the United States. Between the year 1963 and 2007, the rate in which murders have been solved has dropped from 91% to 61%, and despite the technological progress made in forensic testing. When laid side by side, the numbers tell a sad story. More people in the United States are getting away with things like murder than those committing nonviolent offenses. Why are people getting away with violent crimes while hundreds of thousands of people are getting arrested and locked up for nonviolent crimes each year? Why, with all of the evidence out there against the effectiveness of the war on drugs, have its policies not been rescinded or modified? Well, sadly, like many issues in America today, the main reasons can be broken down into two categories: money and prejudice. It's a sad fact that many American policies are motivated by material things like money, and the war on drugs is not exempted from this pattern of greed. The war on drugs started as a government initiative in 1971 by President Nixon in response to increasing amounts of drug use among the public during the 60s and 70s. The war on drugs was designed to curb the recreational use of drugs by increasing federal funding to government agencies like the DEA, but it's since failed to meet that goal. Consequently, its policies have also fueled the misapplication of police resources all across the country. On paper, an officer who makes one arrest looks far better than an officer who makes 19 arrests. And due to the nature of the criminal, catching a drug user is much easier than catching a murderer or a rapist. There is also more than just a reputation boost for officers who make higher amounts of arrests. The more arrests an officer makes, the more paperwork they have to do. And the more paperwork they have to do, the more overtime they end up clocking. These reputational and financial benefits all aid in the heightened focus of law enforcement on catching offenders rather than the perpetrators of violent crimes. Government data shows that many federal grants that police stations receive are dependent upon the number of arrests they make as opposed to the types of criminals apprehended. This focus on drug crimes only helps people who commit heinous crimes like rape and murder get away. The aim of the war on drugs was to decrease recreational drug use, but so far has only aided in filling prisons with nonviolent offenders while letting the worst offenders roam free. In addition to money, prejudice has also been a major motivator behind the war on drugs. Addiction is a disease, and the policies created by the war on drugs do not help to clear up the stigma that most drug users are not the dangerous criminals the media portrays them to be. According to members of the SCWGDP, substance use disorders are a disease and should be addressed within a public health frame. Despite the fact that addiction is known to the medical community as a disease, stigma still surrounds those who suffer from it, especially if the person suffering is a member of a minority group. The breakdown of prison population statistics shows that among inmates arrested for drug-related crimes, 60% incarcerated in federal facilities, and nearly 80% held in state facilities are Black or Latino. The United States has a less than stellar history with targeting minority communities, and many of the policies behind the war on drugs are simply allowing for the harassment of minorities to continue on. In addition, data shows that in comparison to white substance users, Black substance users are up to 6 times more likely to be arrested and charged, despite the fact that usage rates between the two demographics are about the same. The war on drugs has allowed for prejudice against nonviolent substance users, especially those from minority groups, to continue on, and has cost millions of people their lives, when something like rehab and proper treatment could have saved them. The fact that hundreds of thousands of nonviolent substance users are arrested each year because of greedy and prejudiced policies disguised as efforts to help clean up the streets is egregious. Nonviolent substance users should not be treated the same as violent criminals, and doing so is a waste of police time and efforts that could instead be spent working on closing violent cases. Lawmakers working within the United States need to face the facts and let go of old policies that have proven time and time again to be ineffective, and instead create new policies that will work to cure people not condemn them.